John Walters come back early from Ireland. Was that purely a precautionary measure? He's all right for Hull and so on.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to John about that when we initially signed him. Wasn't sure exactly what his situation was, and I think he was a little unclear about what he wanted to do. And in the end, it was decided, he wanted to go and hopefully get minutes, which he did in that first game. And I said the ideal scenario would be to come back because we're still, training. He's a new member of the squad. And we'd like him around, and he was more than happy to do that, and has trained with the lads, and he's fitted in brilliantly, I have to say.
How much has he impressed you the last few weeks? Not just the Norwich performance, but what he brings here at Playford Road.
I just like his attitude. He's around the place, he's got a smile on his face, but when it's time to work, he works as hard as anybody. You can see him in the gym. He's, I've often told he's one of the last out of there. He looks after himself, which is what he said. What you do find is a lot of people will say things and then you find out whether they're true to the word. I think in John's case, he is. I think the lads have had a little bit of a lift from him coming in as well. And he'll be great for us.
How's Cole Skews? Is he okay after the nasty bang on the head against Norwich?
Yes, yeah. He's back to his intelligent best and his dry sense of humour. So... No, that was important, that make sure he's right, but he is, and I'm sure he's looking forward to getting back into action.
Everyone else fitting well. You've got 3 games in the space of 8 days on the horizon.
Yeah, in terms of the squad that's been, up for selection, and they're all right, yeah.
Is Emir edging close to a place on the bench? Might he travel and be involved at the weekend or Brentford?
No. Basically, he's been sort of in and out, keeps feeling things with his knee, behind his knee. He was back out there with Chris Gitt today, so he's unfortunately a bit like Teddy. Teddy's trained the last couple of days, but he's also had time where he hasn't trained. I think probably before I came, and it seems as though they're still having issues in terms of getting out there consistently to then build a level of fitness which would, make them in contention to be in the squad.
Danny Rowe close to some minutes in the league?
He's certainly done well in the games. I think he's still probably not quite absolutely 100% in terms of fitness. I think, and by that I don't mean his injury. I mean as in to go from minute 0 to 95 or whatever it may be. But he has managed to stay fit and been out on the training pitch and doing what he does.
Any closer to getting the paperwork sorted for Janoy? That's a difficult one for you to judge at the moment, and unfortunate for the lad himself.
No, I spoke to him today, and he's obviously frustrated with it as well. He's asked his people, is there anything more that he can do, and they're saying there's not. Like I say, I first find it a really strange situation when he's been over here and playing football. Clearly, everyone can see that. It's not like he's playing for the Sunday League team and going under a different name or not sure who he is. So yeah, that gives me a dilemma and a situation that I'd prefer not to be in, but we'll have to get on with that wherever that's the case.
And on defenders, James Collins has been here. Is a deal likely for him?
No, he's another one who's he's felt his hamstring. He had a scan the other day out of his own pocket, I hasten to add. So he's having treatment nearer to home at the minute, but it's a deal that, in my eyes at least, and the last time that we had contact with him was still a possibility. But I've spoke with him and he understands I can't justify to anyone realistically that we can sign a player that's not fit. So I think he's enjoyed it when he has been in. Whether anything does happen, I guess time will tell. But at this stage, he's not an Ipswich Town player.
Has he impressed you? It sounds like it from what you've said there. And would he be keen on the move if everything slotted into place?
He seemed to be. It's difficult. There's other rumours flying around. I can only say when I've spoken to him and how he's found it. I think naturally, again, he's another one like a John Walters that would gain sort of instant respect and would bring quality, providing he's fit. and at the minute that we haven't been able to say that he is, and he admits that himself. He's not trying to fool us. So, like I said, we'll see how the situation develops over next week, 2 weeks, whatever it may be.
As Freddie C has asked you where he fits in at the moment, particularly with John Walters coming in. He didn't feature at all against Norwich, or even asked for a move.
No, I mean, I'd be very surprised if Freddie wants to move, certainly to the conference, which is kind of the option that's left. No, Freddie's, a great lad. I think he's popular in the dressing room. He's lively, but I just didn't feel, I've got decisions to make. The squad, never mind, it's not just 11 players, it's not just 18 players. And I think the coming week, with the 3 games, we'll probably see that. So he'll just have to be patient and keep working to try and impress and get his chance.
And on making decisions, a big one in goal or not? Is it straightforward? Dean now gets a run at it?
Yeah, Dean will play.
How's Bart reacted in the last couple of weeks?
He's got on with his job, as I'd expect. I want to work with honest people. Bart hasn't come in and seen me, which suggests to me that I think he's, he knows himself that he probably hasn't been at his best. But as I said before, I'm sure that will return. But we'll see how long he's got to be patient on that, because it's only fair that if someone goes in and does well, that they keep the shirt. So that's the scenario that we're in at the minute.
And at this stage, do you feel the last 2 weeks have been useful?
Yes, yeah, and again, we'll get to Saturday, and if the result's positive, we'll say, oh, it was brilliant, and if it's not, it'll be like, well, what was the point? That's not how it works, realistically. But we've got some good work into him. They also then had sort of 3 days, downtime, so to speak, and they came back and looked really refreshed, smiles on their faces, and ready to go.
Maybe more pressure on Hull for this one. As the home team, their fans will look at this fixture and think, we've got to beat Ipswich at the weekend, and maybe they can come out, and that might suit you. I
think there'll be a bit of that. There's no doubt anyone that plays us at this moment in time will think that it's a very winnable game, and we've got to try and show that it's certainly not as easy as that. If we can heap any sort of pressure onto them, then great. But I'm very focused on what we're trying to do, and if we can play how I believe we can, then we will certainly give him a good game.
And you must feel there's some winnable games for you on the horizon when you look at this and the likes of Bolton and Birmingham.
Yeah, but I think you could say that about maybe the first couple, and nothing against Blackburn and Rotherham, but having been promoted teams, I think they both were winnable. We perhaps did quite a lot to win those games to a degree, but didn't. So, I think you have to be careful, certainly as a manager, and players. I don't think we're in a position where we can feel that anything's going to be easy. That's for sure. But just to be cautious of that and not, getting certainly overconfident. But I don't think we're in that position at the minute. It's more the other way of having that belief to go and get that victory, and hopefully kick on from there.
Obviously, so many comings and goings in the first little period of the season. Would you now like to settle on a side in an ideal world if you can?
Not particularly. As I've just sort of said, 11 players, that's not what it's about. And you'd like to be relatively settled. And if the team, produce an absolutely outstanding display and win, the calls will be not to change that. I'm thinking about the games, as I said, with the distance, the travel, the efforts that it needs to then go into a game against Brentford, arguably one of the, I think, best footballing sides in the division, people would generally say, and start the season well. It's a big ask. Now, I've got to try and be sensible about, my thoughts of what to do. Some of that will be obviously dictated to by performance levels and how I feel lads are, what physical exertion's gone on in that game. But it's very much more about just the actual period settling down, and not, although we're still talking about a possible in, but in general, just concentrating, fully on what's here. The phone not, ringing off the hook. so to speak, and just trying to, like I say, have not as many things going on in the background, which is a little easier for everyone to really concentrate on the games ahead.
Lovely. Thanks, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the first time we've spoken to you in any great depth since the loan window shut. How do you reflect on your first transfer window as a whole as Ipswich Town manager?
Lots of changes, as we just said. I think overall positive. I think some of those players that have come into the football club will take longer than others to settle in, but I believe that they can all go on and be good players for Ipswich Town. Obviously some outs, some of those, particularly I think will benefit the lads, and hopefully gain some good experience. So overall, very sort of satisfied. I think we spoke prior to it closing about how many changes there were, and probably there were more than a lot of people expected. So now, as I said, it's about really trying to get those moulded and into a team, into partnerships, to help us start getting the results that we want.
Have you been able to work on anything specifically over the last fortnight on the training pitch, set pieces, things like that?
Bits of fitness. Set pieces, I think there's no doubt you can be good at them. We came up with a couple of corners against Norwich that on another day could have quite easily got the goals you require. Now some people work on them for days, others it might just be a morning. I think if you've got bright enough players and it's clear, they know they wrote up for them, prior to the game, you go and tell them and remind them. You don't have to spend forever on those. So, it hasn't been so much about that, more fitness for some lads I think I spoke about, and then looking at a couple of things in terms of how we want to play and looking at Hull, but again, are they going to line up the same? I think that's very debatable in terms of players they've brought in, whether that's just changing personnel, perhaps changing system. So while we spoke about what they've done so far, it has been sort of alongside that the message that they may change, and we have to deal with that on the day if that's the case. But more, about what we're trying to do. Like I said, there's been a good spirit in the camp, which is crucial and what I expect. But now the games are coming, and we know that will again affect the mood, depending on how those games go.
And while the Donatian situation rumbles on, it leaves you in this awkward 6 loanee situation, doesn't it? I mean, you've said you've had this in the past.
Yeah.
And it is a difficult situation. Have you had a conversation with the players that are involved, and are you going to rotate who misses out?
No, I think
approach it?
It'll just be a case of whoever misses out on that day. Now, if someone's injured, then that makes it a lot easier. If someone's way out of form, if they all look like they're doing well on the training pitch, then it's a case of I pulled last week. When I'd named it all and spoke to him and explained why, and that'll be the similar if it's someone different, moving forward. So it's not ideal, but as I mentioned before, we've just got to get on with that. I'm not going to rotate for the sake of it. We are coming across too harsh or hard. I'm going to pick people that I think's right for each game and who's performing. So I'm not going to sort of just be everyone's friend and say, it's your turn this week. Yeah. We've got to do what's right for the football club.
Mm-hmm. If you're unable to sign James Collins, do you still want a 4th centre back? Do you feel that that's something you want to do?
Not particularly. Again, if there was another name that I felt was a possibility, but I think we have to be careful. The longer that we sort of things go on, you've got to really find out or get them in and have a look. Have they been training? Where have they been training? What intensity have they been training? Because we talk about how important pre-season is, and even if lads are training, if they've missed pre-season, they're not going to be anywhere near the levels that you would expect. And then to come into this group and the way that we want to work and train, I think could be quite difficult for someone. So there'd be a lot of things to consider. And again, what I'm not going to do and what we're not doing in the building is, spending every minute of every day looking and thinking, who can we find that's a free agent just so we can go, we've got a fourth centre back. I'm going to have problems, again, good problems, in terms of if Matthew Pennington plays like he did on that first game. I was happy with Toto. Don't feel he should have been sent off. Stand by that. And then I've got my captain who's done particularly well the last couple of games. So it's going to be a tough enough decision as it is. And I'm not going to add to that unless I really think it's someone that can benefit, the squad overall.
You talked about a few of the guys that have been involved in the 23s and how close they might be. It seems to me your definition of match fit might be a little bit different to others. I mean, these guys need to be at it before you consider them to be back in the first team fold. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. I think even some lads that have played in the first team, I've said they're not being really exactly where we would like them to be overall. So it's a case of working hard constantly. I've seen Jordan Roberts, for example, today. At the minute he's missed out his training with the 23s because we're doing 11v11. I'm not going to have 13 versus 13 and pretend it's 11v11. But I've seen him doing running at the end of the session off his own bike. That's the type of attitude we're looking for. Sure, he's disappointed at the moment when the times he isn't training with us. But it's about being at your best. So when any opportunity does arise, that you at the very least you're fit and ready to give it a good shot. And then hopefully you've then got the physical side that you can last a game. You can bring the quality throughout the game, and not just for a short period of time.
Where's Andre Dizella in the scheme of things at the moment?
Again, Andre is not, he's not in consideration for the first team at this moment in time. He's getting through games, and his overall kind of distance he's covering, things like that, he's fine. It's other parts of that. He's far from someone like myself, but I kind of alluded to it, I think, the other week about I could still play for 90 minutes. I can only play at a certain level, though, for that game how I would like, and then probably 80 minutes I'd be nowhere near it. Andre's nowhere near that, but he can't reach the levels that would be required, throughout that. And he's working extremely hard, doing extra sessions that have been provided for him to strengthen that knee, to hopefully get him to, the level where we can then all make a fair judgment on him. But, I reiterate what I've said right from the start. He's showing a fantastic attitude to get to that point. And it's someone that, I do want to work with. And I hope that in time he will get the rewards that his hard work deserves.
So if players aren't necessarily training with the first team all the time, or they're involved with the 23s, that's not a status thing. You're either part of the squad or you're not. That's very fluid, and you.
Yeah, because again, if you're doing, it's like if I've got a squad of, for argument's sake, if we've got 26 players and I want to do 11v11, I'm not sure that we can do that. Numbers wise, we can't. Now again, do you have two people stood in one position? Do you have them stood on the side and then swap 6 lads over? I want to work with what we're going with and what's best. And as you said, that will be fluid in time. Sometimes there'll be more injuries than others, so it might be no ones with the 23s group. Other times it might be positionally that we don't need certain types, so they'll get asked to do training elsewhere. But when it comes to doing the gym sessions, things like that, they're all together. They're in groups, but they'll be back into that side of it. And the togetherness is there. But you've got, what we want to try and create is an environment where I can back up what I say in terms of you have to be at it every day, otherwise someone is going to overtake you and you're going to slip down the pecking order. If you've only got 16 players, that's never going to work. situation we're getting ourselves to, you know, that's the reality of it. Some days it will be that we'll have all the group training together if we can make it work, but there's some sessions that you just don't, and therefore, you know, they'll be asked. And again, I think sometimes it's deemed as or seen as a punishment. It might be on the odd occasion, but in general it's more about just doing what's right for the first team at that, you know, given day. Mondays and Tuesdays aren't too bad, but when you get later on in the week, you know, you want into that sort of tighter group and want to work on specific things.
You mentioned gym sessions. You're doing quite a lot of double sessions, is that right? You'll train in the mornings and then everyone's in the gym in the afternoon?
Yeah, that's Tuesdays and Thursdays. So, you know, it's not the Monday or Fridays. Fridays are very light before a game to save the legs. But we saw, you know, as I said before, we saw massive benefits from it in the past. Something that we believe in, and you know, I think already you can see one or two lads, I think, benefiting from that. And in time, we want to produce good footballers, of course. But part of being a footballer is being strong, is being quick. And it might be only as quick as you can be. You still might not be the quickest, but if we've made you a second quicker over 100 metres, then that's, you know, a big improvement, and that's what we'll try to do with them all.
Just finally, on this search for the win, you've got your principles on how you want this team to play, and you've seen encouraging signs from the first few games. Do you stick to that now, or do you just think actually we just find a way to win a game and get that monkey off the back?
I think at the minute it's very much stick with what we're doing. And again, there might be some people out there that think, well, that's, you know, it's not working at the minute. Well, I don't think it's been far off working. And what is going to be plan B if we go to that? Or do we go back, do we decide, let's just take no chances whatsoever, kick the ball as far up the pitch and run after it? Is that going to bring us a win? Who knows? What I would say is, we've got to have the attitude to win at all costs. So if, for instance, like the Norwich game, when we're in front, and yes, it's not the last minute, but the ball's there to clear the ball as much as we want to play. So it's just striking, again, just that little bit of balance between, you know, the times in games, but overall, you know, keep doing a lot of what we have been doing. It's funny, I spoke to Piercy there, and he was asking me about stats and what I believe in him. We know what the biggest one is, and it's not good reading at the minute. But a lot of things, I'm watching the games and then trying to make sure I'm being honest to myself about them. And a lot of what I'm looking at suggests what I see is probably, you know, along the right lines. And in time, given a similar run of things, I think we win games of football. It becomes a little bit of a mental issue, or can do. But, you know, at the minute I see a confident group of players, a group of players that have got a good spirit about them, and hopefully they'll get that reward, like I said, for the hard work that they're putting in, hopefully Saturday.
Good luck.
Thank you.
With Andre, a couple of weeks ago you were saying that there was something that came up about him perhaps aggravating the old injury. Has that situation developed?
It's improving, and that's where it's nice to have some, you know, concrete evidence that can suggest, you know, you may be here, and actually we want to be here, and we're making progress. And every game he plays, it realistically should get stronger. But what we had noticed, certainly, I think when we were talking, was from pre-season to kind of 6-7 weeks in, there wasn't really a big enough difference that you would naturally get, and I think a lot of the other players had got. So, you know, with him, I think again, I don't want to. Hopefully, when I speak about Andre, it comes across in the right way. I think I made it clear. I think he's a very, very good player, but I do feel a bit coming to Ipswich that he's been held up on this pedestal that's not quite right. I don't think he's had enough games or done enough in his career so far to really, and for his own good, as in not to put pressure on a player at the age that he's at. There's no doubt he's got talent and ability, and as I've said before, he will have a long, good career. I'm sure of that. but let's not again put too much on him. You know, there's a lot of other good players that maybe haven't been in the team just yet or haven't quite hit form yet. So I feel like I'm talking about him a hell of a lot, and I don't know if that's particularly good for the lad, I would say.
But that's to some extent is because of his surname to some extent, and the fact that we've all kind of watched him grow up, fans have all watched him grow up from being very young as one to watch in the future, and of course the tradition of the club with young players coming through. So how is he? He must be frustrated having missed the whole of last year and then this season.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the battle with him. You know, he wants it instantly, and I know I can relate to it because I think I was very fortunate. I never had that until very late in my career, where I had an injury that kept me out for any length of time. I understand the type of lad he is, and like I say, a lot of credit to him. And I think maybe, I said that 30, 40 years ago, he'd have been asked just to get on with it, and we were all applauded him for that. But we're trying to look after it, you know, what I think is an asset for the football club, that he gets back stronger and fitter than he ever has been, and so he doesn't risk that injury. Now, people can say it's a freak injury. There's some, you know, the medical team are far better suited to giving you better answers in more detail, but I think some of the things that they've looked at highlights that he's more at risk, at least, of doing something like that again. And that's what we've tried to explain to Andre, that yes, you might be a little frustrated at this moment in time, but what's the worst case? Would you rather then get injured again and miss another year, and it's stretching out over a year? I'd suggest that's not a good idea to go down that route. So, he's having to be patient, but it's clear he enjoys his football more than some other people. I happily admit that. You can see it in him. He's like the lad that, it's sort of break time at school, can't wait to get out on the playground and play football. So I do understand where he's coming from. He's just got to trust us and understand everything is in his best interest. And I think I've used it, I was just asked earlier, I see it as a duty of care for someone that is, as I said, and should be a real asset to us.
And James Collins' hamstring, how long is that likely to be about?
I think the information we've received from him speaking with Chris and the scan that he had was sort of for 10 to 14 days. Again, I think he'll know himself, he's old enough, played enough games, etc. Whether it needs quite as long or not, we'll see. And at the minute he's getting treatment himself, but the offer's here for him to come in, and when it gets to that point, thinks he can, if he's still of the mind that he wants to try and get a deal here, then that door's open. I've said that he's more than welcome in, now, because I think from him coming in, he liked what he saw, I think. I liked the way that he came across, the way that he was, and I'd have no issue with him, being around the group, even if he, hasn't put pen to paper as yet.
John Walter's knee that Ireland mentioned, that's just an ongoing thing that has to be managed rather than a sort of an injury that's likely to keep him outside.
Yeah, it was quite, as a little sort of interested with how that came across, and I don't know, we did train 3 days last week, and I'm pretty sure John did that. So
you feel there might be other factors?
I don't know. Things have been out there, haven't they? That's far from me to comment, but I think what I would say is John knows how to manage his knee, and I haven't got, if there's a case of he needs a day off, we'll have a sort of adult conversation and we'll make the right decision. I'm not going to force a player out on the training pitch if it's going to be detrimental to him and to us. We had a conversation right from him before he signed about what I expect generally from players, and it fits into what he wants. He doesn't want to be inside, he wants to be out training. Like I said, if there is ever an issue or it's playing up for whatever reason, we'll look at it. But one thing I alluded to before is in John Walters, you've got someone that again wants to be out there and has got a fantastic attitude. So if he is inside, it'll be with gritted teeth, and it'll be because he needs to be, not because he thinks, I'm a bit tired, I think I might have a day off. And that's, you know, the attitude they want when you've got someone of his standing in the group and the career that he's had, and you're getting that sort of attitude, you know. And I think I'd put your Luke Chambers, your Cole Scouse into that as well. You look at their playing records. I mean, there's some stat out there, isn't there, about how many championship games they've had. That's what you want as a manager, that your senior players, or you can hold up and say that's how you be a professional footballer. And in that case, we're very fortunate.
I think the only player I've not mentioned who's had an injury, Tom Adeyemi.
Yep.
Is any progress in his situation?
I believe he's making progress to a point where he might be able to come back out and do a little bit of work on the grass. He's been gym based. He's been on the sort of gravity machine, and I think he's managed to step that up. So the next step is going outside and doing the running and the work out there. So if that's the case, I don't know if that's maybe tomorrow, start of next week. I'm not sure then how long, in truth, if it went well, how long would take. You know, I think naturally he's relatively fit, but clearly he's missed a hell of a lot of training, and you know, unfortunately not just this season. So you know, that will definitely be one we'd have to, I think, just see how it goes. For Tom's sake, hopefully he can get out there and stay fit.
And we just spoke to Jonas. Inevitably we asked him about his contract situation. Would you like to get him tied down for a longer deal? Have you spoken to Marcus about that at all?
At the minute, no. Would I like him to stay if he continues to do well? Then yes. But I've spoke to Jonas and said at the minute it's too early to make a decision. And kind of that's where I'm at with it, really. It's you know, yes, he's done well, but he's got to continue to do well. And you know, again, he's another one I think shows a good attitude to things. So you know, the things point generally positively, but I just want to see it over a longer period than what it's been so far.
Thank you. Right,
Cheers.
Thanks,
Thanks everybody.